I'm glad to see a good crowd here today, and my comments are going to be addressed at sort of one might call my view of the state currently, and taking a look down the road ahead if we follow the course we now have pretty well scoped out in terms of legislative initiatives. And I'd like to call it a race to the bottom. As one looks across the Idaho scene, we see seeds of disaster being planted in practically every new legislative initiative. On the education front, we see the superintendent of public instruction, with the governor's support, appear with a new educational reform proposal without any input or consultation with the major stakeholders, including teachers, PTA, School Boards Association, school administrators, and the State Board of Education. State Board by authority, the Idaho Constitution has oversight of public education, and yet, according to the president of the board, not one board member knew about the plan before it was announced. I call this the silence of the lambs, and of course we know who the shepherd is. There are cries from Idaho business and industry that we need to prepare our students for global competition and the challenges of the 21st century. What do we see along the Idaho public education scene? We see students attending school for 4 days a week, teachers having to work 2 to 3 jobs to survive, teachers with reduced pay and on furlough. The majority of our school buildings are over 50 years old. The only thing holding the system together is the dedication of our teachers and parents, who keep taxing themselves by passing supplemental levies. We have legislators in the last session who congratulated themselves for not raising taxes, but in a sense they passed it on where their school patrons actually taxed themselves to help hold the school system together. One legislator in Idaho has suggested cutting teachers by 15%, which would make about 40% of our teachers qualifying for food stamps and Medicaid. Not a good idea. Our global competitors, on the other hand, are paying their teachers twice the salary as our Idaho teachers, investing heavily in educational infrastructure, increasing the number of days of school to 225 days as contrasted to 180 days in Idaho, and investing significantly higher than we are in their K-12 and higher educational systems. In the meanwhile, our educational leader in Idaho is selling the soul of Idaho public education to America corporate interests. We similarly face challenges in cutting essential medical and support services to the poorest of the poor through health and welfare and Medicaid programs. On the other hand, we're moving ahead to cut back on worker collective bargaining rights. We all agree we need to stimulate the economy, build our educational infrastructure, and create more jobs. We are simply not looking at tax reform, which we desperately need. For example, we could easily resolve the state's budget problem this year with a simple 1 cent increase in the sales tax with a 1-year sunset clause. However, we need to permanently put us on a strong economic path, and what we need is major tax reform. Part of the immediate short-term strategy would be to move ahead to join the National Internet Sales Compact, hire more tax auditors to go after those who are not paying their taxes, and eliminate sweetheart tax deals condoned by the Idaho State Tax Commission. These components would greatly help resolve our current budget deficit. I could go on to some detail in terms of the major components of House Bill 29, but Bob Huntley will take care of that. But anyway, we're trying to provide some leadership, our leadership here in the legislature with House Bill 29 with some ideas that would give us some options for long-term solution on a fair and equitable tax system that would help us get out of the current deficit situation and provide the funding to strengthen our crumbling educational health services, transportation, and other educational services. If we continue on our current path of slashing all these essential services and programs, we will not only be on our way in the race to the bottom, but we may find ourselves classified as a third world country. Thank you.